Hello and welcome to another edition of Communicate with Power.
Hi,
This is Laura Peck,
Laura Peck.
and I'm Barry McLoughlin. And I don't even know what number this is, but I think it's been about 6 months since we've been doing this together, and we really do enjoy it. We hear great things from you, and we appreciate very much your
Very
comments.
much.
And don't forget to follow us. We really love to see you do that, very much so. So let's begin, Laura. It's been quite the summer. Um, it has its ups and downs. We go from heat and wildfire smoke to rain and everything in between. So today we have kind of a cloudy day here in Ottawa, but that's okay with me. It's actually a beautiful temperature. How would you describe the last few weeks of our summer, Laura?
Well, you brought up the weather, and we do want to send to people, especially in British Columbia, our care and concern for the wildfires. We've been fortunate here in Ontario and Nova Scotia, where we went to teach our course at Cape Breton University. Then we went on to Chester, and that was an amazing experience also. Fresh air, lots of interesting things to do. It was
Although,
great.
in fairness, Ontario's had more than its share of wildfires,
We
and
have.
we kind of got a combination of the smoke. Toronto got it real bad. We were a bit lucky. There was only really a few days, and you are right that we didn't see any experience of that in Nova Scotia, although apparently there had been some in New Brunswick. So it's been one of those summers. I know our American friends, we're we keep getting attacked by President Trump for our wildfire smoke, and apparently we're not raking the forests of the boreal forests that are only reachable by air. However, there you go. We should have been in there with our garden rakes to rake the forest for us. And we're so sorry. I wanted to mention that right away that we couldn't. But in all seriousness, we are apologetic that our American friends have actually had to breathe in that wildfire. They're undergoing the same thing in Western United States as well. And we know that it's just a very difficult, challenging thing. And we have always historically helped each other as countries. Mexico has been involved in that as well.
And
So
this was my first time going to Peck. Was in Peck, Prince Edward County. Many people refer to it as the county. I had never been there before.
Yeah,
It
me
was
neither.
an amazing visit, I
Yeah.
gotta say. On our way, we went to a amazing event in Brockville. It was full of lawyers and judges, and we'll get
But it was a
back.
birthday party, which was kind of interesting.
But also, we'll get back to that in a minute
Yeah.
because we had, you know me, I ask a lot of questions,
Mhm.
and I'll get back
Okay.
to the answers that I got later on when we bring up another topic. Anyway, then we went on to Prince Edward County,
Yeah.
and that was amazing
Yeah.
because we were invited to go to a fundraiser that the Frums had in Picton.
Be David Frum and
David
Daniel
Frum,
Crittenden Frum. Yeah.
That's right. They
The launch of
have-
her book, right?
Yes, and it's on grief, and their beloved daughter died of it could be a lack of not doing the right medication later on in her brain cancer journey. We're not 100%
Yeah, they don't
sure.
really know that. Yeah.
But nevertheless, it turns out that they've put it to a positive to be able to
Yeah.
talk about this and raise some concerns. They're not
Yeah.
they're not blaming anybody.
No.
But boy, are they ever brave to get out there and talk
And what a
about
wonderful
this.
experience, though. In spite of that, they did a wonderful experience speaking to each other on the stage.
They
David
did.
David interviewed Danielle, which is kind of a reverse roles
Yeah.
for David over the years.
Now
And
they're in East Hampton, by the way,
Is that-
doing
yeah.
same thing.
is that right? But it was for a charitable event, and this is really ultimately why we went. And it was very great to be invited to such a thing. Let's turn now to other summer vacations, summer trips. And of course, our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is currently in Italy, and
That's remote working, if I ever
with his
heard
wife
of.
Diana. They're there. Now, Laura, if you were Mark Carney, who would you see when you go over there? Would you just be on your own at the beach, or what would you do? What do you think
Well,
he's doing? I think is really more of the question.
Well, he's probably enjoying some lovely food and beverage, and I do think also, if when you go away, sometimes the creative process of how to resolve the tariff problems, you can do a lot of thinking about your work life also. I don't think that he completely gets away from it at all.
Oh yeah, but let's get to it, Laura. If you went there, who would you want to visit? Who do you think he visited?
George Clooney, the Pope, I don't know.
Okay, so he goes. You're thinking he went to?
Those would be my
Well,
two top
but
guys.
do you think the Carneys would? I mean, I'm sure. Wouldn't George Clooney want to invite them?
Absolutely.
I think so.
Remember, Mick Jagger used to get together with the former
Michael Wilson, former
yeah.
Minister of Finance,
And
the late
so-
Michael Wilson,
right. And
Yeah.
so why wouldn't
down
he
on that
want-
island in the Caribbean. But just to come back though, okay, so you're actually somewhat serious that they could be visiting George Clooney on Lake Como. We'd all love to see that one. And you believe he also went to see the Pope.
I
Okay.
don't know.
You don't know, but okay, here's my take on it. I haven't revealed this to you, but here's my take on it. And I base this on almost nothing.
Good.
Um,
Yeah,
when
I'm
a prime
all
when a
ears.
prime minister goes on a trip like that, if there isn't a business component of it, all of the expense of that would have to be paid by that prime minister. And we had a previous prime minister who got himself in big trouble for a Christmas vacation down
At the Aga Khan.
at the Aga Khans, and boy,
Yeah.
cost of taxpayers, blah blah. Won't go
Yeah.
back through that. But therefore, I believe he went over there, and I believe he met with a minimum of two leaders. I believe he met with the Italian prime minister,
Yes.
and this is all based on just instinct,
She's
and-
awesome.
and the Pope. I believe, and we have all common things to talk about. That whether it's residential schools with His Holiness, or because the Pope has taken a very clear interest in that issue in Indigenous relations, for sure has, and also, of course, the Prime Minister of Italy. They're locked in a battle with regard to tariffs, and
And
speaking.
she stood up to who.
Yep, and she did. And so essentially, I believe those are the anchors of the trip. Yes, there would be a few days for personal time.
Why
and
not?
of course, I was always wondering, like, how does he and Diana Carney, how they're able to handle that massive amounts of trips. I mean, just on a physical exhaustion level, it must be very challenging.
Yeah.
And so having a few days, I hope nobody begrudges them it. And, as I say, as long as he blends business with it, that's really not much of an issue. But however, we do know he needs to recover somewhat his energy and so on for what's coming up on August 19th, which is the imposition of the 50% tariffs that are going to be levied by Donald Trump and the U.S. administration on quite a range of Canadian products.
So what do you think?
Hockey sticks, all kinds of things, cement. So what do I think he'll do? Well, I did a Substack on this last week. I really feel that he can't do nothing. Point number one.
Action.
He can't roll over and play dead. They'll say, oh, well, here's another example of him not taking a strong stand in response to it. Secondly, I don't think he's going to escalate, however. He's not going to take this and just escalate it one step further. He's already said, I'm not going to be cutting our oil. He's already indicated that this will not be escalation. But the third option is the one called counter tariffs. He did this before when it happened last year, and he's going to levy counter tariffs, this is my view, on the equivalent amount, $28 billion, I believe, is the actual amount of tariff costs to Canadian exports. And I also believe that, and it's about a total of 5% of the export back and forth. So I believe that he will do exactly the same. I believe that he'll target the red states. So the Republican states, he's going to target them. They have been discounting and dismissing and diminishing Canada's role. Most of them have, some haven't. We don't even need Canada, on and on and on. Just stupidity, speaking stupidity almost on instinct, as the president himself, frankly, has done. So I believe that he will do counter tariffs, at least through the midterm elections, because counter tariffs are actually paid for by the Canadian consumers. We actually pay the counter tariffs. We don't really pay the tariffs on the American goods. The American consumers pay on those tariffs. So he's going to counter it. That's my prediction, and we'll come back and I'll admit if I'm wrong. All right.
Before we move along, though, Bloomberg did say that this noted economist said that the Canadian business scene should do quite well because business likes certainty, and they think that they can deal more seriously with Prime Minister Carney. So
Yeah.
I put that out there.
I want to add one more point, if you don't mind. Okay, this is the point I wanted to make. He is clearly trying. You can see down there Janice Charette and the minister.
Speaking of awesome women.
The minister from New Brunswick. He is down there with Ms. Charette, and they're negotiating with Mr. Greer, the American trade representatives, to see if they can, Dominic LeBlanc, excuse me, I blanked on that, Dominic LeBlanc, to see if they can find at least an agreement on a range of products, goods, and services, ranging from possibly the alcohol situation. A lot of provinces, including Ontario, have stopped
interprovincial barriers coming down.
Yeah, there's a lot of the egg marketing issue, the supply of dairy goods and products. I think that's going to be one on the table. So we've tried unilaterally giving them things, but there's nothing counter. So it has to be done as part of a package, and reducing those 50% tariffs way down. What is acceptable to Canada? Probably 10% like the rest of the world. But try to get any more, and there's a consequence attached to it. So I'm just saying to you that I believe that's the goal. I think he stated that is the goal, and trying then to see if we can come up with a reasonable agreement that we can all live with. All right.
So I wanted to, should we talk about the training we just did?
Yeah, let's talk about that. We just finished one.
Yeah, and this has a lot to do, because we did talk trade and tariffs and all this, but this business coaching that we do with executive, so it's executive communications, but also simulation of real world
challenges, issues that they're facing.
Yeah.
So this particular executive is facing a major transition in his professional life, and wanted guidance through the process of that. He's completing work with one company and looking forward for opportunities elsewhere. So that was a major transition in his life. He's somebody who loves continual learning, and we're very fortunate that he approached us. He's in the U.S. Midwest, and we've been coaching him 5 sessions. Usually it's once a week. We often say one-on-one, but it's actually 2-on-1. Laura and I are both doing it together. And it's really just been a wonderful experience. We've done a series of those. We're going to be doing one coming up in September. So, by the way, if anybody wants to know anything about that, we'll make sure to put that on our Substack so you can see that executive coaching. The other final thing that we want to talk about is the testimony by Dr. Anthony Fauci.
And that's what I'm bringing back.
Yeah.
We were at this event with many lawyers and judges.
Yeah.
So, of course, I asked all of them,
yeah,
what would you do if Fauci was your client?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you.
Well, what did they say? I'd like to hear it.
Oh, well, they were very upset. I was surprised that all of them really felt very badly for Dr. Fauci, because they all admired his work on HIV a long time ago, as well as they are emotionally intelligent enough to realize that COVID had new updates of science, of every single thing you could think of every single day. Now, did Fauci he kind of embarrassed himself because he journaled some things that were embarrassing about how much he enjoyed the notoriety.
And RFK Jr. got a hold of that diary.
And he was the guy, and RFK was the guy who was preaching there should be more privacy.
And RFK Jr.'s own diary about his proclivities, shall we say, were hugely shocking, such a turnoff. It's funny that he would be the one. He actually got it online. He dove and got it. His team did, and they posted this, which apparently shows contradictions in what Fauci said, some texts he had sent, et cetera, et cetera. In the end, though, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has been constantly beating the drum, just attacking Fauci as a human being, just attacking him relentlessly. He's chairing this Senate committee, and he's just, going after him, hammer and tong. So,
Yeah.
what would he have done? Well, Lori, as you well know, and I think a lot of our viewers and listeners know, is that we do specialize in appearance before committees, and as a training program, it's how to prepare for it and how to respond. How to handle the actual committee appearance. So obviously, one of the first things we say is if you go in with a purely reactive mode, you're going to be losing. You're just reacting to outrageous attacks and false information very often. He was given legal advice, however, to plead the fifth. Now in Canada, they don't have formally that, but you have a right to not incriminate yourself. And of course, the very fact that you're pleading the fifth is already a problem because it sends off an image of you hiding behind it. Even though Donald Trump, in his legal depositions, one of them he pled the fifth 405 times in one deposition sitting. I believe it was one sitting. So people will do it, especially if they feel, in this case, obviously, Dr. Fauci team, and he felt that he's in the crosshairs. Anything he says, they're going to twist, distort, and try to get him into saying something that a criminal prosecution could result. Even though, however, he was given pardon exemption by President Biden, that was their excuse to break. You've already got the pardon, and then now you're just hiding behind that. You don't even need it. Well, that's what he's saying. So then it comes down to what should he do? So the first thing I said was don't just react. Go in there knowing what are the key messages you need to get across, not just to the committee, but in this case to the American people. It didn't appear that he had that in any strong, compelling way because you're just pleading the fifth every time. So what could you do then? Well, we encourage people to be responsive to the question. Don't evade it, but push back and get to the messages you need to be getting across. You may not win it, but you won't have a big loss either. You will be able to push back credibly and get your message across if you do it right. So we're often asked to give examples of what do you mean by bridging. And I just wrote these up, and they would need more work, but this is sort of a rough draft of a few of them, So when Rand Paul was just hammering them with massive misinformation, just ridiculous in my view. I mean, there's no evidence to back it up. So here's a couple of suggested bridging lines that Dr. Fauci could have used to get over to his message track. One, Senator, I listened carefully to what you just said about the spread of COVID. Are you basing that on verifiable facts or evidence? Because if so, respectfully, you're in complete contradiction with the evidence as reported by all of the agencies who monitor that evidence. So that's an initial line. You probably won't get halfway through that before he cuts you off, however. Senator, that would be deeply worrisome if it were true. Sometimes you get that far. But respectfully, you've claimed that same point for years without providing any evidence at all. And I have done so, and I have quoted the science-based reports that have provided that evidence. Senator, I'm hearing a question that is absent of even the mildest scientific proof or credible research. And here's the proof as provided by, and then you give the name of the organization and try to get to the proof point. Senator, I know you to be an intelligent man who would not knowingly peddle anecdotes and rumors as scientific evidence. However, and then away you go. Yes, Senator, mistakes were made along the way during this terrible journey that America and the world has gone through. I have been forthcoming about the mistakes that have been made, that with the benefit of hindsight, a different decision might have been taken, such as, boom. Now, so it shows that you're not trying to present yourself as perfect in every way, because there were mistakes made. There's no question about that. Some states and in Canada, some jurisdictions had ridiculous kind of restrictions on people. Other provinces said, we're only going to allow people from Atlantic Canada to come here, not from the other provinces.
And we did not go.
And we didn't, even if they have parents, elderly, dying, whatever. No, you're from another province. It doesn't even make sense. So, there were a lot of things that hurt businesses, absolutely,
Totally.
and hurt ability of people to function. In Ottawa, there's a very famous case of a man who was pushing his little boy on a swing, and a bylaw officer came rushing out of his car, chasing after him. This man is from Africa originally, so when you see somebody with a uniform on, you start running. And didn't they tackle him and try to charge him, brought the police in? And what did he do wrong? If he had just walked through the park with his son, that's perfectly fine. If he pushes his child on a swing, arrest him.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of stupidity that right in our own backyard, literally 150 yards from here, was done. So I know why people are angry about some of those silly, stupid, unnecessary decisions made for the best of intentions. Their goal wasn't to torture people, but I think it made it far more difficult, painful to endure. But
Barry,
yeah, go ahead, Laura.
When I asked these judges and lawyers what would they have done differently, a lot of them also took into consideration that Dr. Fauci is 85 years old. He's under constant threat of people doing a drive-by shooting or whatever. His family, his grandchildren, none of them have the kind of freedom that we all want to be able to enjoy. So I wonder if by taking the fifth, he realized that he put his own self out there for so many years, and two things can be true at the same time.
Well, Laura, I got to punch back on that. First of all, if I'm half as smart as Dr. Fauci when I'm 85, I'll be very happy. Thank you very much.
For sure, yeah.
He clearly is sharp of mind.
Yes, he is.
If he's prepared properly, he knew this was coming. There was a lot of time to prepare properly, not to memorize a bunch of stuff. But people have often said to Barry, I learned how to get in the groove of that. You know, acknowledge or refute, bridge, message. There's the three steps.
Don't forget these were lawyers and judges I was talking to.
But these are the three steps of bridging.
Yeah,
acknowledge or refute.
That's where we come in with
bridge, message. A lot of people just do the bridge. So it's important to do the three steps. And even if they cut you off, you still are getting out eventually that there's a whole other story here that's not being told. I mean, actually, the fundamental premise going on there was about the Wuhan labs and America's role in that, and they were deliberately leaked. They weren't the wet markets. Now, they may well be right about that. I don't know there's been definitive evidence, and I'm not actually just dismissing that, but he's using that to turn everything as a nightmare, that we didn't even need the vaccines. We didn't need any of these other things, and which is a falsehood. And he had evidence, factual evidence, that in mostly the red states where the vaccines weren't uniformly put in place, you had at least twice, if not three times, the amount of COVID and you ended up with many more deaths than in the other states. So there is actual evidence to push back with. He chose not to do it. And you and I have been in the room in which, on actual helping people in real situations, that a lawyer will be in the room and often don't answer that, better not, you better not, because they'll say, look, I can protect you in court. That's true. But we're in the business of protecting you in the court of public opinion, in the court of those that form decisions and wonder, if you had the answer, why didn't you give it? So that's the world. Most people aren't judges and lawyers. They're not really experts in the law, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're recommending to them, and we have proven that in case after case, that if you're properly prepared and trained, you can indeed push back successfully, get your messages across, and not end up with the really disastrous thing that occurred, the way they treated Dr. Fauci. So
yeah, well, when we are coaching doctors that we're dealing with, God forbid there would be a pandemic or crisis communications, they will very often tell us something, and they also have the time to review it and to say back whether or not they would say it out loud. And we have to leave it to their discretion. And the first podcast I was ever on was in early days, like the first couple of days of COVID, when we were all in our homes, and I was on with Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
And at that time, even my own technical skills were not good enough to be able to. I can only show you the Galloway asking me the questions. Yeah. But even early days, he had to admire Canada and how we right away started to do something very, very quickly, rather than as you had
Yeah,
said,
I mean,
state by state.
yeah, and
We were ready to go.
and to be fair, though, I don't like to be one of those Canadians that said we did it all right. We had our share of
He
mistakes.
said that.
Yeah, and I elicited. I gave you a few of them. So it you know, perfection is lovely, but it's rarely achieved by any country. And we certainly didn't. I'm sure there are very major lessons learned in Canada as well.
Oh, for sure.
So we want to thank you. By the way, you'll notice that button at the bottom of this called subscribe. We would love you to click that button and subscribe, share that with your friends. We'd love to hear from you. We're often very much appreciative of the questions and comments you have. So by all means, we want to hear from you. Subscribe. We'd love to join you in discussions and in addressing some of the questions and issues you have. So
Thanks for listening.
until next time, all the best to you, and we'll see you somewhere down the line.